So before we begin, I just want to say happy holidays to all of you out there that are currently watching this video, and if for some reason you're watching this video when the holidays are already past, or you don't even care about the holidays, you don't celebrate the holidays, then I still wish you a very good rest of the year, and if the year is already passed when you watch this, video, then I still wish you a really great rest of the year. So anyways, this is the finale of Inuyashiki, the final episode. So there is not going to be another episode next week when, Thursday finally comes around. We will not be expecting another episode, which is sad. But at the same time, though, like I've always said in so many other series I have reviewed, all good things must eventually come to an end. And so, before I talk about the very, very sad and very, very emotional ending of the series, I want to talk about a scene that just truly threw me for a loop, and that was the Donald Trump scene. Yes, you heard me right. If you have not watched the episode and somehow you're still watching this video, Donald Trump was in this episode, and I'm like, what? I was watching the episode, okay? I was just sitting there watching it. You had all this emotion, all that build up, and then all of a sudden you have, Donald Trump pop up. I'm like, is my eyes deceiving me? Am I legit seeing Donald Trump in Inuyashiki? I'm like, what? Okay, I know that there is some manga out there that have already put Donald Trump into their manga series. I've seen that already. However, I did not know Inuyashiki was one of those series, but apparently it was. And when I saw that scene, I'm like, whoa, Donald Trump is actually on the screen talking about the meteor coming in. But what makes it even better is how the animators managed to get Donald Trump's mannerism down perfectly, down to the nitty gritty. And what I'm talking about is Donald Trump's mouth movement. I don't know how many actually recognize how Donald Trump talks, but he moves his mouth in a certain way. I can't replicate it, I'm not even going to try. But if you look at that scene in the episode, and when you look at Donald Trump, the way that Donald Trump in the anime was moving his mouth, it looked exactly like Donald Trump in the real life. And I'm like, whoa, they got that really accurate. That was a really good depiction of Donald Trump in a way. And then even the English, the English that the Japanese person is trying to speak, it wasn't actually that bad. It legit wasn't really that bad at all. I've heard a lot worse. And so, I will give props to that scene. That scene had me just dying of laughter. I legit was laughing. And I don't think everybody out there is probably going to find that scene amazing or funny. Because, number one, if you're not an American or whatever, you don't know much about, Donald Trump, then you might not find that scene overall funny. However, it comes down to comedy being subjective. And I personally felt that funny. I just couldn't help but laughing just seeing Donald Trump in this series of all things. It was perfect. So anyways, with that being said though, let's talk about the serious stuff of the finale. So the finale of the episode shifts its main perspective off of Hiro over to a bigger threat, which is the meteor or an asteroid coming in that will wipe out all of humanity. That's what the final episode is about. Now overall, I'm just going to say, I like this episode, I like the finale, I like Inuyashiki. However, there was some problems I had with this finale. And number one, the biggest problem I had, was that it felt like it shifted the overall narrative focus way too quickly. I don't know if that was just me, but when I was watching this episode, it felt like it shifted away from Hiro way too quickly. It didn't focus on Hiro enough, and it just shifted over to this asteroid coming in that was going to wipe out humanity. Now, don't get me wrong, if something like that was going to happen, if there was, some serious stuff happening in real life, some news stories going on, but all of a sudden a meteor is coming in about to strike Earth, I guess, that would be the shift of the focus of the attention of everybody throughout the world. However, in terms of just the story of Inuyashiki, this ain't real life, I was just it felt very weird. I don't know, just the way that was paced or the way that was done, it felt very awkward to me. I felt like that could have been handled a little bit differently, introducing that, the asteroid coming in, which it was established a couple episodes back, however. Just the way it shifted into this episode, I don't know, just, it felt weird. And like I said, I hope I'm not the only one that felt that while watching the episode. But, anyways, besides that problem I had with it, overall, it was a decent episode. There was a lot of emotions, and the question that Inuyashiki asked at the beginning of the series was kind of answered in this episode. And the question I'm talking about is right at the beginning, before he became a machine, before he became what he is throughout the series. He asked a question to himself when he was in the park alone that night. He's like, if I was to die, would my family even cry? Would they miss me? That's what he asked himself at the beginning of the series. And at the end of the episode, when he sacrifices himself and he pushes his eyes in, you see these quick little flashes, glimpses of his family. And you see his family members actually crying, and then you see how he just, he explodes. He sacrifices himself. In that moment, what that's representing is that Inuyashiki was able to realize that his family would miss him. His family would cry for him, And that right there answered the question we had since the very beginning of the series, which I really liked that. I liked how that was done. I know not many are probably going to care about that scene, but it's just little stuff like that I really like when it comes to a series' conclusion, answering a question that was asked at the beginning of the show, and that's what happened right there. Inuyashiki got the answer to his question, and he had a noble sacrifice. He was the hero of this story. And actually, Hiro was also the hero as well, which was a really cool way to take his character. So let's talk about that for a second. So Hiro, he decided to sacrifice himself to get rid of the asteroid. And there's a problem with this scene I want to talk about in a minute, but he tries to sacrifice himself. And the reason for it is because he also has people he cares about, which does make sense. It fits in line with his character, because we do know that he cared about Pubehead. We know for a fact he cared about, the teenager boy, Cho, in, high school. We know for a fact he cared about him. So it doesn't mean that it came out of nowhere. Like, his emotions of wanting to protect them and save them, it didn't come out of nowhere. However, he did get some character development in that moment, because instead of being selfish, not wanting to, harm himself or give up anything for himself, he was willing to put aside his own feelings, his own selfishness for the people he actually cared about. For instance, he put aside his selfishness for the 2 individuals or the 3 individuals that he respected and cared about and wanted to protect, and so he offered up his own life to protect them in turn, which saved everybody else on the planet. So I like that character development. I think Hiro was a really good villain. I mean, he wasn't one of the best villains I've ever seen, but I have to say that he was a really good villain, a very fascinating villain. I wish there was more time given to him, however, and that is why I said the narrative shift over to the meteor from, Hiro, it felt very weird to me. I felt like there should have been a little bit more build-up for Hiro. I know he had a lot of development and characterization, but I would have loved more time with him, because he was a really good villain. I really wish this series would have gotten, like, 13 episodes or so, because at the end of the day, if we look at the episode count, there's only 11 episodes, and I'm going to assume the series adapted the manga properly. I'm assuming that the actual manga of the series isn't that long, because typically seinen don't really go that long, so it makes sense that it would probably conclude this quickly, and it kind of sucks, but, I guess things like that do happen. So anyways, let's talk about the one problem I had with, Hiro sacrificing himself. The big problem I had with it is the logic behind it. Now, in terms of character development, characterization, all that, it fits in line with his character, so I'm not gonna downplay that part. However, there was one thing that bugged me. And the thing that bugged me was the fact that Hiro stated in his simulation that if he was to explode, he would, save everybody. He would blow up the asteroid, or at the very least be able to move its, axis and change its direction where it doesn't hit the planet. And this was his simulation. He was like, okay, I need to do this. And the thing is that Hiro, throughout the entirety of this series, he's always proven that he is very good when it comes to his abilities, being as a machine. For instance, he's able to process and do things that even Inuyashiki was not capable of or couldn't even do at all. And so, when he said that he could actually get rid of the asteroid, then I'm like, okay, so this is actually going to be a thing. But also, it doesn't just stop there. Also, the aliens at the beginning of the series, the first episode, they even stated that Inuyashiki and Hiro, they had the capabilities of destroying the planet. So, that's where the logic fails there. I was like, okay, that doesn't make much sense how you have it to where Hiro only took half of the asteroid, he couldn't take the entirety. That doesn't make much sense to me, especially for what was said from the aliens, but also the simulation that Hiro ran, because even though Hiro could possibly make a mistake, I mean, his body was not in the perfect condition. I mean, his arms were ripped off, back of his head was ripped off, so there is a likely possibility maybe he wasn't able to run perfect calculations. Okay, I'll let that slide. However, the aliens stated that at the beginning of the series, so that just seems very faulty in my part. Like, that just seems very faulty and weird logic for him not to be able to take out the whole asteroid. Now, don't get me wrong. Inuyashiki sacrificing himself has a lot of emotional weight, and I like the way it was done. However, in just terms of Hiro messing up and not being able to take out the entirety of the asteroid, there's a logic fail there. Now, speaking of Inuyashiki, however, his sacrifice, I'm sad to see it happen. I legit am. But at the same time, it makes the most sense, because these two characters, they're weapons. They are these machines that are way beyond humanity, and they would upset the balance of the world and all of that, even if one was to remain alive. And so because of this, it makes sense that those two characters had to go out like they did. They had to sacrifice themselves to save the world, for the world won't ever have their technology, threatening them ever again. But at the same time, though, you have it to where, like, there's never any worry of anything possibly happening going really wrong with these two individuals. So, I like how that was done. I don't think it was perfect, but it still was a very good show. So, yeah, overall, Inuyashiki, wonderful series. I think it ended at the perfect time, because if it would have probably stayed another, like, 8 episodes or so, which, you know, or up to 20-something episodes, it would have overstayed its welcome. I don't think it would have had enough content to make a really good plot. So, makes sense why they ended it early, or why the writer ended it early. I think it's a good series. I liked what I watched, and I would watch it again if I knew what I knew now. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.